Hey, welcome to this episode of Rinks Around the League. On this episode, I welcome Trent BUHLER. Who's Trent BUHLER? Don't worry, you're about to find out. Stick around, you won't be disappointed. This episode is brought to you by the Second String Leather Company, Arcadia Brewing Co, and Ross Flats Vintage Apparel. Head over to rossflats.ca, enter in the code RINKS20 to get 20% off your online purchase. The holiday season's right around the corner. Support local, check them out. All right, let's get at it. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to this very special episode of Rinks Around the League. This is a pretty special episode because I have a very special guest, Trent BUHLER. A friend of mine tagged me on this awesome video of Trent's creation of the Boston Garden with the old table hockey, and it's absolutely phenomenal. We'll show you some pics and some video. And he posted it just last week, and I reached out. I said, "Hey man, I got questions." So I reached out to Trent, and he said, "Yeah, for sure, I'll come on." So Trent, welcome to the show.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
So Trent, we talked a little bit before we hit recording here. You've had a lot of feedback on your awesome creations. So take a moment here, introduce yourself, and what the video was all about.
Okay, like you said, my name's Trent. I'm a huge old-time Bruins fan. I love old-time hockey. I love old toys, and table hockey being one of those I really love. I love mechanical things that work. And I kind of wanted to tie it all together and recreate the Boston Garden. And I thought about it for many, many, many years, and then I've been winging it for the past 2 years, and it's coming together.
Awesome, and what a creation it was. So those of you who are watching, make sure to head over to Instagram and follow at Old Time Table Hockey. It's got to be a must follow. After I saw his video, I reached out. He sent me some pics of his work in progress, and it's just phenomenal. So I'll let you guys check it out. Make sure you follow his Insta. It's truly amazing. So Trent, I mean, I got to start off. Twitter kind of blew up. People started tagging me in it. I guess first question is, just because of the intricacy of it, how long did it take? And just kind of give me the rundown of like the materials used and how you went about making it.
Okay, so basically I started, I thought about this for probably 10 years. 2 years ago, I finally set out to get on it. So I spent a ton of time walking up and down the aisles of hardware stores trying to find pieces that would work that I needed. And, slowly mocked up a few things, put a few pieces together, and realized that, yeah, I think I could do this. And so it really evolved I learned a ton. I did things differently. I started by building the slot pattern. I've got a huge stack of ones that didn't work out. And I had the game basically to a playable game. And then I realized I'd made a couple miscalculations, had a little bit of rod interference with the rods. So I decided to cut a new surface, and then I decided to go for it, and I made it even bigger. So,
wow.
So then I went probably another, 4 or 8 inches longer, a little bit wider, and kind of started again. And I managed to get it to the point of having the boards up and the glass, and you could actually start playing it. And then I just had a flat deck around it and was like, here we go. I'm going to start building the actual seats, the actual arena. And now 2 years later, I'm at a point now where I'm really having fun because it's all little detail work and little intricacies and little men's room signs and little, I'm nuts basically.
And I was going to ask you about that because some of the pictures that you've been posting on Instagram have, like the stencil numbers on the bleacher sections and little advertisements that are like true to that time period and stuff. So tell me a little bit about the research. You mentioned before the show here that you've never been to the Boston Garden. So the research, how much research did you do when you decided to build it?
Well, like I said, I've always loved the Bruins. I grew up in Calgary. There used to be a sports bar down the street from me that used to open early on Saturdays because the Bruins used to play at the Garden Saturday afternoons. Then the Celtics played at night. So I really love the colors, and I love the mystique and the gallery gods. The fact that the ice surface was smaller, and they built teams to take advantage of that, to crush teams, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, that was pretty much
Now, I should mention for
where it
viewers
all came
that
from. And I just wanted to.
Trent lives in Edmonton right now, so he's a hardcore Bruins fan living in oil country. So it's yeah, it must be. How long you been in Edmonton for?
Geez, 30 years, I think.
Okay, nice.
See, now the thing with the Oilers and me is that I grew up in Calgary, and I think I was 12 when the Flames came to town. So of course I was on Team Flames,
Ah,
and it was very hard in the early 80s to be have nothing but just hatred for the Oilers. You know, you go into the third period up 5-1 and lose 6-5, right? Gretz
yeah,
come down the wing and clap one. Oh yeah, it was tough. So I ended up moving here, and yeah, I go to one game a year usually when the Bruins come to town, and that's about it.
nice. So going back to the Boston Garden. I mean, obviously they're not there anymore.
Yeah,
They're in TD Garden now, and
that's right.
they built it right next door to TD Garden when they built the new rink, and they had to
That's
tear
right.
tear down the old one. And I think that's what really struck me about your piece was, even though it's not exactly, there's no way you're going to fit. I don't know what the capacity was with TD Garden, like 10, whatever it is, 10,000,
Right.
15,000, or whatever it was. You're not going to make that much, but it's a really fair representation of it. So tell me a little bit about the scale work. So obviously you couldn't do everything, but exactly what it was, but what were the most important things to get right in this piece?
I was really going for realism, right? Yeah, I mean, table hockey has evolved as well. Like back in the 60s and 70s, the games were just beautiful. You know, they looked like a real rink. You know, they
Yeah.
had everything. And then it kind of got away from that. So I really wanted to make something that looked real. And then I also wanted to, the type of players I'm using are from an old game from the late 70s, mid 80s, Coleco players. And I wanted everything to sort of be close enough that if you squinted a bit, the scale was there. I knew I couldn't do 15,000 seats, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I wanted to, my whole idea was just to try and grab all the characteristic features that are easily recognizable and make sure they're in there, so that at quick glance, it looks like it. It really looks like it. I mean, a lot of the board ads, they're from all different eras. There's a few that I made myself to make that I just saw photos on a photo. I mean, I spent a ton of time looking at photos all over the internet. I posted a couple pics on a Facebook page of fans of the Boston Garden, and I met a guy who was a photographer for the Celtics for 20 some years, and he got me some photos too. It's been really awesome.
when it comes to details, like you said, that you had, kind of ads from different eras. I think the thing that struck me right away was those balconies, those really kind of overhanging balconies that were pretty characteristic. You
Yeah.
don't see them anywhere anymore in new rinks or
No.
old rinks. So
Yeah.
when you're building something like that, is that entirely made out of wood? And was it tricky to put up and to stay in position?
Yeah, actually, I rebuilt those balconies twice, I think, because it was, like I said, I have no plans, no idea. I just know what it was supposed to look like. So I had along the ways, like I said, I created a lot of mistakes, but I also had tons and tons of happy accidents where something just, I was like, oh my God, look at that. It totally worked, like, so yeah, it's mostly wood, MDF, and then all the detail pieces are mostly 3D printed or sourced from something else, model railroad stuff.
Nice. And
Yeah.
so when I asked you earlier, when I was asking, is this purely a hobby? You just got bored and was like, hey, I want to do this, or is this something that you've done multiple things of? And you mentioned you've kind of done some miniature replicas of other rings.
Yeah, well, when I started to do it, I could see I was like, oh, I'm really actually getting something here. And I was like, I'm sure there's plenty of other old dudes like me that are out there that miss all those old barns and would love to have something like this in their basement. So, I mean, if I made this and enough people were like, wow, I would love for you to come in and build one of those in my house, I would say Yes, absolutely. I love making them, and I really want to do some other buildings as well. But while I was about partway, maybe I was a year into this, somebody actually reached out to me to see if I would just make them a section of seats, and I'd never given that any thought at all. And so I just thought I would do it, and he bought it. So then I kind of made a couple comments on it. Said, hey, I could do this if anybody's interested. Set them alongside your game, hang them beside your game. If you got a bubble hockey game or something. So all the people I've made these for are all bubble hockey owners. They got them set up there. It looks kind of finishes the wall behind their game. Looks really cool, actually. Plus, I got to do a bunch of different buildings.
And so when you were doing those sections, like let's just take Chicago Stadium for example, like what were kind of the colors, but is there anything structurally that is pretty unique to that rink?
Yeah, that was the cool thing too. Like I really like researching. Whenever I'm doing something, it's like I go and find pictures of the seats and the armrests, and I really I design all the pieces in 3D and make them look as close as possible. Or like I said before, get the characteristics that are there. I know Chicago Stadium had lots of little skinny railings running all over the place, and all the seats in the lower bowl, if I'm not mistaken, were folding chairs. 3 of them hooked together, but it was all folding, just regular kind of seats you'd sit at a wedding or something. Pretty neat stuff. And I guess the exit signs over the exits used to be glass. And back in the day, Jeremy Roenick and some of the other boys used to fire pucks at him and smash them because of the owner. And so he put them into little tarps instead of glass there. So, good little story about that. So I got those in there too. Right?
That's awesome. You should put a little Jeremy Roenick like flinging pucks at him or something.
That's right. That was a fun one too. Well, the guy actually requested me to. He says, "I want 2 ushers and 1 beer guy in the stands," and I was like, "Awesome!" So I got to make a beer guy.
That's awesome.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, those are the types of stories. Like even the Roenick's, shooting at the exit signs. Like those are the stories. Yeah. You mentioned old guys liking your stuff. Yeah. I guess I'm an old guy now because I love your stuff. Even my show talking about all the newer rinks. That's part of the reason why I started the show was to showcase all of the rinks, not just the popular ones, like show fans all of them, because there's a lot of really good rinks out there. And speaking of your research, I think you mentioned when you did something with Wells Fargo and you ran across one of my episodes for research.
That's right. I did. So I was looking all over. There wasn't a ton of photos that I needed, so I was like, "Oh, I found you," and I watched a whole bunch actually. I kind of binged it one day. So, good job.
Nice. Yeah. Well, if you do one with Wells Fargo, you should do a penalty box with broken glass and Ty Domi wrestling in there with a fan.
I gotta get Gritty in there actually.
Oh yeah, Gritty. Yeah. So let's talk about rinks that you have been to. You mentioned you've been to
cool.
Not a ton, but you've been to a few. So name off some of the rinks that you've seen and your impressions of them.
Oh, I haven't been to many new arenas. I've been to the one in Edmonton, of course, which is pretty wow. And lots of games growing up in Calgary. I saw lots of games at Saddle Dome. I saw a couple of Flames games when they played at the Corral, like 7,000 people. And my first pro game was actually...
they're tearing that one down. They're tearing that one down with the expansion of the new rink, eh?
I know, and it's so sad. I totally grew up in that place. I used to go to Wrangler games for like a couple bucks with my friends when I was, super young, and it was like I don't know if you ever went to the Corral, but the concourse, the photographs in there, it's like a museum. It's amazing, right? So there, probably the greatest arena I ever went to was the Forum in Montreal. Just wow.
Nice.
It was like, I grew up watching Hockey Night in Canada as a kid, and 50% of the time it was from the Forum. Danny Gallivan and Dick Irvin.
Yep.
And I was in Montreal. I used to be all to play in a rock band, touring around, and so there was a game. Went down a $10 scalper ticket against the Whalers.
Nice.
It was pretty cool. Shane Corson, I think, scored the overtime winner. That's cool.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah, and
Now
just
being
being
a
in
Boston,
yeah.
now being a Boston fan, like, is that, do you still appreciate the Forum in all its hockey lore?
I do. I was a fan of Ken Dryden when I was a kid, and I mean,
Okay.
Canadians are the Canadians, and I loved them until the playoff
Yeah.
because my story
Yeah.
never ended well. But just being in that building and seeing the banners, I don't even think I watched barely any of the game. I was just looking around, and I was there with a
Yeah.
local guy from Montreal, and for the first period, he got us better seats, so I was in the first row of the whites, like right before the railing. It was just fantastic.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, you got to check out the Forum and Maple Leaf Gardens. I mean, you got to think one of those has got to be on your list of replicas to accomplish soon. Hey.
Absolutely, both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many cool characteristics in both of those buildings, like the Forum with the blue kick plate on the boards and the red, white, and blue seats. It's just really cool.
You and I, flipping it back to Edmonton, you and I both are owners of Rexall Place seats. Tell me about the seat that you have. Did you pop the cushions off? Did you clean it well?
No, actually, that's a good point. I should maybe think about that. I love it though. It's seat number 7 too. I actually got it from my brother-in-law for Christmas last year. He's a long time Northlands employee, about 25 years.
Well, I have seats 6 and 7, so we have almost the same seat, pretty much.
Hey, nice. Maybe we're in the
Yeah.
same section.
Yeah. Well, are they the ones with the wooden handles on it, or?
It's got, yes, they are wooden handles. The wooden back and then
Nice.
the
Yeah.
padded there. Yeah. Nice.
Nice. So, being in Edmonton for so long, I would assume you've been to Rexall and you've been to Rogers.
Yep.
It's been in the news. Basically, it's only a matter of time before Rexall, gets kind of meets its demise.
Yeah.
It's just basically just sitting there empty. But maybe give me your best moment in there, the best game you saw in there.
Ooh, best game I saw in there. I don't know. I'm pretty sad when I drive by it now and see it with no signs on it or marquees blank.
Yeah, it's pretty depressing.
Yeah. I think one of my best memories was my first game there. I just moved to Edmonton. This was probably 1990. And it was weird because at the time you weren't allowed to drink beer in the stands. You had to run up to the second floor. I don't know if you remember that. And so,
Wow.
So it'd be like a big mad dash of everybody just running upstairs, and everybody would get 2 beers and drink them and run back down to their seats, right? But it was the first game I went to, and I bought tickets, and it said obstructed view, but it said first row, and I was like, how obstructed can that be, right? And it was right behind the bench on the aisle where the players came out, and I was sitting there going, this is fantastic.
Oh, wow.
For the warm-up, going, what could be the problem? And then as soon as the game started, I realized that I had the rear end of the assistant coach in my face for the whole game.
So when they mean obstructed view, they mean it's it's an obstructed view.
It may not be there all the time, but 90% of the time it's going to be there. The only cool saving
nice.
about that whole thing was that the backup goalie back then used to sit in between where the tunnel was, and it was Glenn Hanlon at the time, and he was chewing Bazooka Joe bubblegum, and he'd take the wrappers and he'd slide them through to me and just hand me. He didn't give me any gum, but he kept shooting the jokes to me, so that was kind of neat. So that's my best memory. Rexall.
That's good. That's a good one. Oh. So with Rexall Place, it's a pretty there's nothing. I mean, we all have our own memories inside that place, but from a structure wise, it's not overly. It's not like Boston Garden where it has like a real ton of characteristics. I mean, the roof is maybe the most unique characteristic of Rexall Place. But if you were building it, what would be kind of the most exciting thing to kind of get your head around on how to build it?
Well, I would definitely want to go back to the Gretzky era before they put all the luxury boxes on them, just the top of the bowl there, and they had all the they had all the walkways going all over. It had more character then. big letters, section signs, right? So I would definitely go back to that. I've actually even started looking into that as well, doing a little research on that one as well. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I would definitely do that though.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to, when all this COVID madness ends, I really want to be able to pop by and see that garden in person, because
Absolutely.
you know, photos are fantastic, but as you know,
Yeah.
when you see things in person, and maybe you and I will have a friendly match.
There we go. Let's do it. Televise it.
We'll live stream it.
I just got to build some little tiny cameras first.
Hey, that'd be cool. Awesome. Well, Trent, thanks so much for being on, taking the time, and congratulations on everything. You did a fantastic job. I admire it greatly, and I hope everyone watching the show gets a chance to follow you on Insta.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, Jeff. Really appreciate it, man.